So from there now, it would get to the point where now we were at this point where like we've been dating for a while, and she'd come over most of the time. I hardly ever went over to her house but there is a reason for that, which I'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, she would come over to my house, and normally she wouldn't leave till around like 5 in the beginning of the relationship. I've had girls sleep over at my house, and like it was never really like that big of a deal. With Suzy now, she left at around like 5 in the morning or something like that, and then my dad, he called me into the room the next morning after that, and he was just like, listen, this whole 5 in the morning business is not gonna fly with me. Like, she needs to leave at a reasonable hour. So I was kind of pissed off about that, because I'm like, what, like, since when is this rule getting put into play all of a sudden? But I was just like, all right, you know what, you're the man of the house, it's cool, whatever. So what is a reasonable time? So then he's just like, she can stay till 3. So I'm like, okay, cool. So we obeyed orders. She'd come over and she would leave at like 2:59. So from there, she would keep doing this, and then over time, my dad was just like, you know what, no, this 3 o'clock business ain't gonna fly with me. She has to leave at a more reasonable hour. So I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? After that, I was just like, okay, well, what's a reasonable time then? And he's just like, 1 o'clock. So I'm like, okay. And is that your final answer? She started leaving at 1 o'clock. And then over time, same shit happens. He calls me into the room, and he's just like, you know what? This 1 o'clock business ain't gonna fly with me. She needs to leave at a more reasonable hour. It's at this point that I'm getting pissed, because I'm like, okay, sooner or later, she's not even going to be allowed to stay over for more than 2 seconds. Like, what the fuck? So me and my dad, we started getting into these arguments and all this shit, and then just like we were feuding, and to the point where it's like, oh my gosh, like, oh, like, I wanted to, that was like the first time in my life that I actually wanted to like just deck my dad for this stuff, because we would really get into it, like these really heated arguments, man. After a while, she started getting frustrated, because it's like the way our schedule worked was, she worked during the day, I worked during the night, right? So I would get home at around like 9 or 10. So then she would come over to my house, and that would mean that she would only get to see me for like 2 hours, right? So yeah, it was really difficult it was really difficult on our relationship, because there was not really there wasn't an adequate amount of time for us to really hang out and spend quality time with each other. And space is good in a relationship, but when you have too much space, it really hinders the relationship. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much what was happening. And then insecurities stem again, and it just adds more problems to the relationship, and it just became so damaging. And then I found out that I wasn't allowed to go over to her house, because her parents didn't like the fact that she was dating a Christian, a non-Jewish person. This became an issue for her, because as I said earlier, she's a family-oriented person, and she likes that family dynamic. And the reality is, we started to really conceptualize the fact that we weren't gonna have a typical family dynamic if our parents felt a particular way about our relationship. Neither one of us going into this relationship were really overly religious. I still am not very overly religious. A lot of you guys know, I'm a believer in Christ the Lord, but I'm not a strong believer in religion. And she was kind of just like, yeah, I'm kind of on the fence. I don't really know what to believe exactly. But then over time, she started getting more involved in her religion. And then another issue that we had to deal with in our relationship was, let's say supposedly we were to get married, right? What about when we have kids? Are they going to have a regular birthday, or are they going to have a bar mitzvah? Are they going to go to church on Sundays, or are they going to go to Shabbat? You know what I mean? And she was listing all these things and everything, and because I loved her so much, I was willing to make the sacrifices for her. Like, you know, she was saying how she didn't really want to have a cross in her house because that's not what she really believes in. She believes in whatever the Jewish symbol is. I forget what it's called. The star or whatever. The Star of David, is that what it is or something? I don't know. But yeah, that's what she wanted to do, and I mean that was fine. I mean that's her religion, right? She has every right to think that. I don't dog her for that, right? But at the time, I loved her so much that I didn't even care. I'm like, whatever, like I'll sacrifice that stuff. I didn't go as far as saying that I would convert because I wouldn't do that because then that's just stripping me of my entire identity and I'm taking on a whole new identity that I don't even really believe in. You can't, that's the thing, you can't sweep these issues under the rug. You have to communicate at all times because what happens is the issues just build up and they ascend and shit, and that's exactly what happened because one day we're arguing about over stupid stuff, like something so minimal. I think I might have said something, or she might have said something, and one of us took it out of context, and it just escalated into a huge fight. Midway through the fight, she was just like, you know what? I'm done. I can't take this shit anymore. It's over. And it got to the point where I went from being mad to being a little bitch. I was like, wait, no, we can work this out. It's okay. Like what? Like, you know what? Maybe I'm tripping. Like it's okay. And I totally lost it. Like, cause I knew she was reaching her breaking point. It's just I never thought she would actually cross over and take that step. So when she said that, my heart just broke into two. I was just a fucking wreck, and she just hung up on me. And I tried to call her back, and she was ignoring my calls. I tried texting her, left her like millions of voicemails and shit, and she just wasn't answering. And it got to the point where I actually like literally drove out to the closest payphone around my area, got my 50 cents, put my 50 cents in, and called her on a payphone just so I could talk to her. And she answered for a little bit, realized that it was me, said, like, it's over, just leave me alone and shit. Like, she wasn't that cold, but I mean, that's how I interpreted it at the time. But yeah, she didn't want to talk to me. Man, my ass is asleep, guy. But yeah, she didn't want to talk to me, and I became a fucking wreck. And I did a parody video on how I took the whole breakup, but like seriously, like no jokes aside, like I actually like broke down. I was like I was just devastated, man, to say the least. Like I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping. That was like legit true. Like I lost like so much weight. Like it wasn't even funny. Like clothes were literally hanging off me and shit. You know what I mean? Breakups will do that to you, man. Like they really do fuck you up. You know what I mean? And yeah, I was in a bad place, and it was even worse because you know after I tried to reach out to her, I found out that she was going on vacation to I think Buffalo or some, she went somewhere, Brooklyn. I don't know where she went. I can't remember, but she went somewhere with her family to visit her cousins or some shit like that. And she was gonna be gone for 2 weeks, and so like you know, still tried to contact her and couldn't get a hold of her, and she just left. I was really depressed to the point where I didn't know who to turn to. Before, when me and Suzy were dating, she was always showing me all these YouTube videos, and she actually showed me Timothy De La Ghetto, which is part of where I got my inspiration from. And you know, she was like, "Yeah, you could do this. You're in film. Like, why don't you like you know make videos and all this stuff?" And I was always telling her, I'm like, I don't really find myself that funny. I'm like, I don't really know what to do. I don't really have like much to say. She was always the one who was kind of like pushing me and like being like no, like you're funny, you know, you could do this. Once we broke up, you know, I took the opportunity to kind of like, okay, you know what, I definitely got to make a change in my life. I got to find something that'll help me. Like, you know, I definitely don't want to do drugs, and you know, I don't really want to kill myself. So, you know, what's an alternative to all this? So that's when I came up with the whole idea of doing Real Talk, which was pretty much dealing with people who suffer similar situations or like other relationship stuff and wants to write in and talk, you know what I mean? Because aside from my friends, I felt like I didn't really have, you know, people to really talk about with in regards to the situation, because none of my other friends have really gone like have really gone through the situation that I was going through in regards to the whole interfaith thing and the parents not approving because of that and the race card and all that stuff. So, you know, I created the show, put ourselves out there. We made our first YouTube video, and you know, it slowly started to build a little bit of a buzz, and you know, our high school friends started watching, and you know, I found what I liked, you know, like I found that I really enjoyed doing this. Luckily, I found my passion in something else, which kind of helped, you know, rebuild my self-esteem and everything like that. And thus, Real Talk Gurus was born. And I started getting into this like place where I was like, okay, I might be okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was still kind of fucked up, but at least I was getting there. Like, I wasn't wallowing as much, you know. But I cried every night, like straight up, like whatever. I'll be mad enough to admit it. Like not even cry. Like I bawled. I was like, shit, man. Like love of my life is gone, right? And then one day I'm sitting at work, you know, mingling with my colleagues and stuff, and I get a text message from her, from Suzy in Buffalo or whatever, wherever she was, and you know, she basically was just saying how she missed me, and you know, she's coming back in like a couple days, and she really wanted to talk to me and like explain everything and everything, and just you know, talk about the situation, talk about us. I was really really mad, but at the same time I missed her so much that I was just like, okay, you know what, fine, we can see each other. And she started texting me every day. Well, not every day, but like a lot, 3 4 pages at a time, you know what I mean? And so I knew that it kind of meant something. Like, I mean, like she was actually feeling kind of hurt about everything. She came back, and then she came to my house, and we walked to like the closest park to my house, and we talked about the entire situation. And she just went on by saying, like, she's like, you know what, I don't even care. I don't even care about the fact that, like, you know, like if we have kids and like like whether they have a bar mitzvah or a regular birthday party. I don't care about that shit. She pretty much just broke down and started crying and stuff. And I know this sounds bad, but the crying actually made me feel better. Not in the sense that I wanted to see her in agony or anything. Well, I kind of did, because I mean, she hurt me, like made me lose like 30 pounds, guy. But yeah, the crying, like seeing her cry, kind of just, you know, it made me feel good, because it was like I felt as though it was genuine, and I was like, that is my ride or die chick right there. That's the love of my life. And so, you know, but at the same time, I was kind of second guessing, because I'm like, a lot of what she said in regards to the complaints in our relationship made sense. I mean, it was sound. Like, I started to put things into perspective. Like, my love goggles were no longer on, and I was actually really taking in the fact that, like, if we do have a kid, how are we going to raise him? I mean, a kid needs to be raised on moral values and stuff like that. So how are we going to raise him? Because some of the the practices are a little bit different. You know, I mean, the overall structure, like the overall belief, is the same, but the practices are different. So it's like, how are we going to raise a family if I believe in one religion and you believe in another? And how are we going to deal with the fact that our parents don't even like our parents don't approve of our relationship? That may never change, you know what I mean? So like, what are we gonna do? How, like, what about a wedding? Like, I already have so much shit to worry about regarding like my mom and dad not liking each other. I still have to invite both of them. They both have to be in the same venue. You know what I mean? Now I gotta worry about my dad not liking my mom, my dad not liking you, your parents not liking me. Like, it's just like, it's so fucked up, man. But again, my heart kicked in, my logic backed down, and I took her back because I loved her, man. I was crazy about this chick.